Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we are here to talk about UpTV and their Country Hearts movies. One aired in the fall and one aired during the Christmas holidays. And I should say at the beginning that I am working with UpTV this season as far as some of their promotions, but my opinions are still my opinions, and that has no impact at all in my feelings on these films. But today we're going to talk about these Country Heart movies. And when I was thinking about who would be the ideal guest to talk about these movies, one of the first people I thought of was my friend Ryan Cam to come on because you're a big wrestling fan. And Ryan, thank you so much for coming and talking Country Hearts.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I think I've messaged you privately about this. I'm not sure, but if I haven't, then that's on me. But congratulations for that. When I saw that ad, I was thinking like, wow, my friends are so much more famous than I am.
Well, I was very excited, and I'm very grateful for the support and the chance to work with UpTV, and that they've allowed me to keep my autonomy as a critic and still promote the ones that I like and to talk about them. So I've just really enjoyed getting to preview and work on their films, work with them. But yeah, Country Hearts. And like I said, the reason why I thought of you is because these movies have Chris Jericho, and he's a wrestler. You're a big wrestling fan. And so he's somebody you were obviously familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that movie, The Iron Claw, a little later this year. It's all about the
Yeah.
wrestling family, the Von Erichs. You all are not prepared for that movie. It is going to rip your heart out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me just give a bit of a preview. The Von Erich family had 6 sons. 5 of them died, 3 of them by suicide.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yep.
that's going to be intense. Very different than Country Hearts.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But the point is, when Rachel asked me to do it, I was like, "Oh yeah, Chris Jericho is in that." I think I'm a little qualified to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, you've been on the show a couple. We've done, of course, the previews with Jennifer Chandler, all the rest
Mhm.
previews every year, which is so fun. But for the record, for people that might not be as familiar with you, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Ryan Cam. I have a YouTube channel. It's at Ryan Cam 20. I'm sure there will be a link in the description. But I cover movies there. I've kind of toned down like recent stuff. Like I'm not covering as many recent movies because uh, the news cycle is kind of exhausting. So I just tend to focus my energy on things that I'm passionate about. Like as of this recording, I'm in the middle of my Scorsese month where I'm reviewing 4 Martin Scorsese movies I've never seen before: The King of Comedy, Casino, The Departed, and The Wolf of Wall Street. I have collabs for a couple of those, and those reviews will be dropping every Friday in November. Actually, as of today, we're recording this on a Friday, so the Casino review just dropped. So that'll be live on the channel. And then I've got a big Christmas series coming up in December. Going to be reviewing a whole bunch of Christmas movies from like the early to mid 40s up to the present day. I was actually just watching The Bishop's Wife, the original Bishop's Wife with Cary Grant, before I jumped on to
Good one.
talk with Rachel. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun so far. I mean, Cary Grant, that dude was so smooth, like he just was, and like
For
he
sure.
basically plays this super charismatic angel who
Yeah.
basically takes over this bishop's family, sort of, kinda.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be a fun review to talk about, and yeah, I've got couple podcasts on the channel too. I got Life in the Movies with my friend Jacob Martin, and another one where I am recapping the show Smallville with 2 good friends of mine. They're super fans. I've never seen the show before, so
Mm.
I am reacting to the show for the first time. As of this recording, we just wrapped up season 2. We're taking a bit of a break for Thanksgiving just to kind of take some time off, and then we'll be jumping to season 3 in early December.
There's a
So
lot of Hall stars on Smallville because
that's true.
it filmed in Vancouver. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so definitely a lot of crossover there. Like
Yeah. Cool.
so,
Have you
but
been
yeah,
enjoying it? Do you like it?
yes, it's a really good show.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's safe to say that the superhero movie craze is dying or is completely dead, but I have not really enjoyed the lineup that we've gotten this year. Smallville has
Me
blown most
either.
of it out of the water, with the exception of Guardians 3 and Across the Spider-Verse. I turn on Smallville and I'm like, this is better than like most of the
Yeah.
superhero movies we've gotten this year, and this show is over 20 years old by this point.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. I really liked the TMNT animated, but yeah, it's been rough in the world of superheroes in 2023. Yeah, I agree.
Not looking
Well,
forward to that Marvel's discourse.
mm, mm. Well, so as far as Chris Jericho goes, how would you rank him as far as in the world of wrestling? You've got like, let's see, the people that have come out of wrestling to make, in movies and stuff. We've got Chris Jericho, we've got John Cena, we've
Mhm.
got The Rock. I think those are like the big ones.
Hulk
I mean,
Hogan did a lot of movies.
oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah.
He did a lot of movies in Rocky 3, of course, but then in like the late 80s, he did a movie called No Holds Barred, which is
Mm,
not particularly great, but it's kind of a cult classic. It kind of spun
yeah.
off into a wrestling angle where like he being Hulk Hogan faced the villain Tiny Lister
Uh-huh.
from the movie. It's a whole
Yeah.
thing that I do not have time to break down here. It's kind of complicated, but
But
yeah,
it in the
wrestlers going to movies and vice versa is a long and rich history.
hmm was so with Chris Jericho, is this somebody that you're like, I get it because he was really charismatic as a wrestler, or what was
Mhm.
he like as a wrestler?
Well, he's still going.
Oh, okay.
He's a part of All Elite Wrestling, which is the number two wrestling promotion in America. WWE's number one. They're like the number one in the world. No one's going to top them for a while.
Uh-huh.
Especially recently, they just merged with the UFC, so they're not
Mhm.
going anywhere anytime soon. But AEW is is pretty much the de facto number two. And Jericho's been with them since day one. He's been wrestling since, I want to say, 1991, 92. So he celebrated his 25th anniversary as a wrestler during COVID. So I kind of suck at math. So let's just say early 90s.
Okay.
Early 90s is
Good.
when he started. And he's been there in like every big company that
Hmm.
there is to know. Like,
Hmm.
and he's very charismatic, especially back in like the early to mid 90s, where when he was in WCW, which is no longer around, he was a bad guy, but he was that bad guy that you kind of liked to cheer. Like, he was
Hmm.
just so funny. He would come up with these things like where he would wrestle a guy named Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko's moniker was he was the man of 1,000 holds. So he came up with the idea, he being Jericho, of calling himself the man of 1,004 holds. And there's an iconic promo on WCW's main show where he unfolds this long document and he's like, I'm going to name you all of the 1,004 holds I know. Hold number one, arm bar. Hold number two, right handed punch. Hold number three, left handed punch. Hold number four, arm bar. And what's funny about it is as he's reading this list and the show goes to commercial and then it comes back and he's like, hold number 563, arm bar. And the joke is that every other move he's reading off is an arm bar. And just, many things like that.
Yeah.
But he can also be incredibly serious too. Like
Hmm.
when he was in WWE in about 2008, he basically got rid of everything that made him popular and charismatic, and he basically became an extension. Like, he kind of became like you all have seen No Country for Old Men, basically the villain in that movie,
Oh,
though
really?
with no air gun. Like, he was like, it wasn't that sinister, but basically he
Huh?
would talk in like this slow monotone. He would call the audience hypocritical tapeworms, and he would use these big words, but it worked.
Huh.
And he had a big feud with this guy named Shawn Michaels, who's comfortably one of the greatest of all time. It started out like very friendly, but then it got really bad. Like, it in reality, it was an angle where he was going to punch Shawn Michaels' wife, but it turned out he actually punched Shawn Michaels' wife. It was fine. Like, she was cool
Hmm.
with it, but it just parlayed into an angle where it got real nasty between the two of them. And it's like, I could talk about Jericho for days, but what you need to know
Yeah.
is that he was always surrounded by like the Rocks and the Steve Austins and the Hulk Hogan's, like in his like last big run. But he was always that constant, that like standard bearer, like just he always made it work, and he always just
Hmm.
had the talent, whether it was just putting on great matches or just being an incredible character.
Hmm.
He just always had the ability to make it work, and he's one
Yeah.
of the few wrestlers, at least for nowadays, with the exception of maybe The Rock, John Cena, that has broken out into other mediums. Like, he's the front man to this band called Fozzy, which he formed with the remnants of the band Stuck Mojo. And after like 10, 15 years of being relatively obscure, they had a hit in Judas, and they've basically had nothing but success afterwards. He's written 3 books, all of which I've read, 2 autobiographies, basically from the start of his run to when he debuted in the WWE, and when he left the WWE, and all those years he spent doing Fozzy and acting gigs up to his return. And then he wrote a motivational book called "No is a Four-Letter Word," which is pretty funny there.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah,
Yes.
I know, super long, but
Yeah.
that's
No, that's good. That's why I wanted you on. Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. I think he did a pretty good job in this role as your patriarch, your dad, because he could have easily played this role like real cringe, and you got to hand it over to the writing as well. But I liked the fact that he was, a lot of times these fathers can be kind of can be frustrating because they're unreasonably overprotected. Like, he's just like, you're my adult daughters, like, you have to make your choices. Like, and I appreciated that, and also just the way in both movies, the way he treated Darlene, and she's like, okay, you got to do this, he was just super supportive, and I appreciate that in this kind of archetype for that character.
Yeah, one of the things that I kind of got to laugh at is the fact that Chris Jericho is known for being like the head of Fozzy, a heavy metal band, but in this movie he's known as a country star.
Yeah,
like
right.
that made me laugh. I don't know why, but it just
yeah. But I thought he did a pretty good job as the dad.
No, he was very likable. I think some of his outfit choices, and I know this is a weird like thing to point out. Some of his outfits were kind of odd. Like, he wore a baseball hat a couple times, and I was just like, no, that was not the right move at all.
I think they were trying to get this like look of sort of not a has-been, but like somebody from, like, they were kind of trying to make it look like almost like a 90s kind of look, because his bones and everything, and he had this career in the past and all. But that's kind of the vibes I was getting, is like almost maybe even like 80s kind of sort of a look to it.
Yeah, I can understand that, but just and I can safely say it's only a couple of scenes, so it's not like he wears that hat for the rest of the movie. But there was those couple times where
just with the long hair, that was very like kind of 80s, early, like 90s kind of aesthetic. And And but I guess we've kind of dove in, but as far as the two movies, the series, what do you think? Did you enjoy it
I did.
overall?
I did, and like you touched on, like he could have easily have been the overbearing, the overbearing dad. Like I've been in this industry, you have no idea like what it's like. I love how supportive he is.
Hmm.
Like he like supports his kids no matter what. I love that. I love the spirit of that. It's
Yeah,
really these girls' romantic partners that are really like the ones that are like, you shouldn't be
the
doing that.
challenging. Yeah, especially Justin.
Like the one dude who runs the winery. I was
Yeah,
just sitting there like
Justin.
I was just in there like, dude, you run a winery. Like she
Yeah.
has a better chance of being like being the breadwinner here than you. Just saying.
Yeah, no, I definitely have some thoughts about that character. But overall, I enjoyed it more than I was expecting. I think that it is definitely made with Heartland fans in mind. You can tell. I mean, even Bones as a character is very similar to Tim Fleming on Heartland, who's the dad character on Heartland, and they even have the actress who plays Darlene. The mom is Michelle Nolden, who's on Heartland. It's shot in, I'm pretty sure, some of the same places as Heartland. So it just has, you can just tell. I mean, the whole ranching atmosphere, dealing with the horses, that's very Heartland. And I think with that in mind, I think that most Heartland fans will really enjoy this. I think they'll obviously it has like a music kind of influence, but I think that you always want to try to look at what audience is this made for, and is it going to please that audience? And I think that both these movies will please that audience.
As someone who's like the amount of Heartland episodes he's watched, I can count on one hand and have fingers left over. That's not a knock on the quality. It just, just
Mm-hmm.
a general statement. I did appreciate the atmosphere of it. It broke my heart seeing that opening where like the barn burns. Like the
Mm-hmm.
girls are like doing their opening gig and they do a pretty good
Yeah.
job and then like the lightning strikes and then the barn just becomes toast. I was like, I'm not a horse guy, but I feel so bad for that horse. Like, really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and again, that gets very Heartland. The horses having to be kind of rejuvenated, brought back through therapy and stuff, and all of that. That is Heartland for you. So, yeah. Oh, this first movie, it is director Marco De Fumia, writer Jennifer Snow, who we've talked a lot about this Christmas season because she had like 8 Christmas movies this season, which is unbelievable. She's amazing. And it stars Chris Jericho, Lainey McCauley, Katrina Maria, and Michelle Knowlton. And it's basically about these two sisters. They're the main characters that have this duo band, and they have this ranch that they grew up on. The father, Bones, uh, he's a former musician. His wife is trying to kind of make a comeback. Darlene, Bones and Darlene, and all of sort of the drama surrounding them. And yeah, it starts with a fire, like you said, and the horse Bluebell gets smoke in his lungs, and so that's kind of a plot throughout this movie. And so yeah, what did you think about Tori and June as characters? There's the two sisters that are the duo in the band. Well, what did you think of them? Oh, yeah.
I realized I am muted. Crap. Uh, I liked these two as characters very much. They did come across as very likable. I really appreciated and I was rooting for them early, like from like the jump for to like their goal is to get signed to a label and then become bigger stars in the music. And I like I really wanted them to work it out. And I think the movie did a good job of establishing the relationships between the girls and Josh is his name? Like the backup, the dude?
Oh, Luke.
or Luke. Where did I get Josh from? I'm getting my Bible names confused. But
Yeah.
Luke. I love how they established the relationship between these three immediately. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
going to be the heart of the movie. And it basically begins with them and it ends with them. So I like the symmetry there.
Yeah. Well, and then this movie, the first movie ends with a cliffhanger because not only is there Luke, but there's also this guy Barrett, who's the bartender, who's very charming. And so it's the battle. Will Tori pick Luke or will she pick Barrett?
Yeah, and I wasn't so enthused about Barrett. Not that he was bad or anything. Like I got on board with Luke right away.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something about Barrett, I didn't like his attitude of like maybe your sister deserves to be a solo, and he's just like, you don't get to tell her what to do. Like, dude, like come on.
Well, I was surprised. This is more the next movie, but I don't know if they're planning on making more movies because I was really surprised with the ending of the next movie with the love triangle and how it ends in the next movie. Because I definitely was feeling more the Luke connection. Then there was something about Barrett that felt unreliable.
I was gonna say it felt off.
Untrustworthy. Yeah, there was something about him that I didn't really trust and wasn't feeling the chemistry as much about that. The other thing that really surprised me is that in these two movies, it's kind of hard to talk about one without talking about the other. So you have Justin. June is married to Justin, and he's they own the winery, and you get a feeling this is like a fairly new investment that they've made. Is this winery, and so I was expecting his character to I don't know, go full on villain, especially in the next movie. He just was always he's involved in gambling and all this stuff. And then at the end, I was kind of surprised that at the end of the next movie that they're going to start a family and it's like this happy ending. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, that was a bit of a tone whiplash for me because I was not I kind of teased. I was not a big fan of this character. Not just for the winery stuff, but I liked the girls so much that it was as soon as he started down this road, I'm like, yeah, dude, you just need to go away. Go away.
Well, and this movie ends with him saying, oh, I just need another week for the money. So I was just thinking, okay, wow, this guy's way on the deep end, especially for one of these kind of movies.
I also wanted to bring up, you were talking about Barrett being kind of off. I feel like if they do make more of these, I would be interested to see where they go with him because it seemed like they were implying, they were more than implying that the girl's family and them does not like Barrett's family. I think it's outright said.
Rivalry.
And it's not really elaborated on. I feel like if there is a third, it was I'd like to see more of that. What happened in the intermediary between the past generation? I want to know that.
I'd like to see that too. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the good folks over at Baker Bookhouse Publishing and their fun holiday reads. Hallmarkies, if you can't get enough of the Countdown to Christmas movies, we have a treat for you. Get into the holiday spirit with not one, but two enchanting Christmas romance novels. First, immerse yourself in All's Fair in Love and Christmas by Sarah Monzon. An office rivals to more romance about two colleagues who have to use their Christmas spirits to compete for a big promotion. And for more enchantment, dive into You Make It Feel Like Christmas by Toni Shiloh, where a woman must return to her hometown for her sister's wedding to her ex-boyfriend, but she might end up finding a new love that lasts beyond Christmas Day. So grab your hot cocoa, snuggle under a blanket, and let these books sweep you off your feet. Purchase You Make It Feel Like Christmas and All's Fair in Love and Christmas for 30% off and free shipping at bakerbookhouse.com. That's bakerbookhouse.com, or you can use the affiliate link below. How did you feel about the music in both of the movies? What do you think?
I mean, I liked it. I don't think it is like world changing, but I
Mhm.
think for what they were trying to go for, I did like it.
I liked it. I thought it was quality. I'd like listen to a Spotify playlist of these songs. They're solid. I just think they were a little too long. There was a little too much of them. I could have used more character time and a little bit less of the music montages.
Yeah, I can understand that too. Like I said, I thought the songs were pretty good. I feel like there was I feel like there was enough character in between, but I can also see where you're coming
Hmm.
from.
Yeah, yeah. So June is actually like supportive of the idea of Tori going solo at the beginning of this movie. She tells Tori that, and Tori says, "No, we're doing this together." And June says, "My heart's not in it the way yours is." And so that it's kind of an interesting dynamic that June goes on, because then by the end of the second movie, she's telling Justin, I'm not going to, stop doing this. And that, so she kind of goes on a journey of realizing that she really enjoys the music.
Yeah,
I
I'm
thought
not
that
sure how
was
to feel
interesting.
about that. I think it would have been interesting if she actually did like let her go
Mm-hmm.
solo and then she end up going down her own path and maybe feel like that's unfulfilling and then maybe try and go back and then maybe there's some friction there or maybe
Mm-hmm.
not. I
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
I feel like they went with the safe option on that one. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, never mind, back to the main timeline now.
Mm-hmm. But it's also she sort of it changes a little bit when she talks. So she's had this conversation where she's told Tori that Tori should go solo. But then when her husband says, "I need someone all in, not someone like your mother," that was a brutal line.
Yeah, that was rough. Like I
Yeah.
said, not a fan of this character already, but then when he said that, I'm like
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. And so then we get this whole thing where the where Bones records Tori and Luke singing and playing the guitar, doing a song in the barn. And of course it goes viral, because everything goes viral on these kind of movies.
Man,
And
if only these algorithms like that we know today only
I know,
worked in like those movies.
I know, right? And
No, but the weird thing, and this is a weird kind of note, but there's like one of the girls was doing this live stream, and she was like, "We're gonna be at the barn," and then Rod, or I believe his name is Roderick, right?
which
Like
one?
he's the ranch hand with the like
Oh,
the buff.
Roddy.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and when Roddy comes out with the saddle, and he's like, "Oh," and then like promptly ends the live stream. Like I've never
Mm-hmm.
done a ton of live streams on my phone before, but I figured there'd be at least like one more pop up to be like, "Are you sure you want to
Oh,
cancel?"
yeah, that's true.
I know that's a weird note, I know, but at the same time, it's like surely there must have been like a little more wait time, and surely that stream must have been on a little longer, or maybe
Yeah.
people watching might have heard some of that conversation. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so then Barrett gets threatened by this whole thing with Luke and Tori singing in the barn and the video and everything, and so he's trying to fix his mistakes. He's like, "You make me crazy." And then, "Does Luke make you feel like this?" And then we get a pretty good kiss between Barrett and Tori.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said,
So
I'm Team Luke. If we're assigning teams,
yeah, agreed. Agreed. But I am a huge sucker for friends to lovers, as far as that trope of like the person who's just like so sweet and supportive and is clearly in love with you, and usually the at least she's aware that he is. Usually the heroine is blissfully unaware that this person is. And I love
yeah,
that trope. It's really good. But because they've had this viral hit, they get signed a deal, a recording deal, and she calls Luke, and this makes Barrett upset. They're very upset, and so We get a nice scene with Bones giving Tori this cross necklace that God's going to help you find your way home. And that is a difference between this and Heartland. Heartland is pretty secular. It's not really religious at all. And so this one is a little bit more outright religious. There's scenes in the chapel. There's, talk about faith and God. But I thought it was pretty well done for this kind of thing. I didn't feel like it was too heavy-handed for these characters. What did you
Yeah,
think?
I agree. I was gonna point out, like, literally before the first like concert, like that the
Oh
girls do,
yeah.
there's this big opening prayer, and I
Yeah.
did like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not entirely sure how, like, up TV, like how religious they are. I don't want to assume necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like, yeah, there's a lot of God references in here. I am a
Yeah.
fan, but at the same time, I was like, wow, I was pleasantly surprised, I guess.
I think especially for a character like Bones, I think
Mhm.
he is a character that would probably be fairly evangelical in his faith, since it was somewhat dramatic in helping him get out of these dark places in his life. Like, I totally believe that character would do a group prayer before the concert. That feels like the only time that the thing that faith-based films can get wrong is when the ministry supersedes the story and characters.
Mhm.
And in this case, to me, those moments felt authentic to this character, that's the kind of thing that this character would say and do. So I didn't feel like it was, preachy personally. I felt like it was good. I thought it was handled well. And we also have him with this, dealing with the aftermath of the fire and this horse Bluebell, and then there's also Thunder, and there's the horse has a foal in the movie, and so he's getting all involved with that. But
One
he was a pretty good dad, I think, Bones.
one thing that I will say, and I was gonna touch on it when you brought up the prayer part. I was thinking to myself, you know what? I need a Bones prequel. Like, I think that would be
Yeah,
interesting.
I think
Like
so
like
too.
maybe near like the tail end of his career, like maybe he goes into some really dark spots, and then you just
Yeah,
see the
Bones and
pulling.
Darlene. Yeah,
Yeah,
their love story. That'd be fun.
exactly. And it's
Yeah.
heavily implied with the record label that there's a little bit of history there too. So I'm saying there's juice to squeeze with a Bones
Mm-hmm.
and Darlene movie.
Yeah. 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 True. I agree. So then you have this June saying goodbye to her husband, and that's when we get the scene with him saying to the, I just need another week to get some money. He's in a bad deal. Made a bad deal. Not
Sounds
good.
about right.
Yeah. So then they pick up Luke, and then she says goodbye to Barrett, and they're off to Nashville. And then we get a final scene of this movie with Bones and Darlene. And so we don't know kind of which one that Corey is going to pick, Barrett or Luke. And we're off to Nashville, and that's the end of this movie. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies. We have Country Hearts Christmas, which just aired. And the big thing, it starts out this movie, they got a Christmas hit. It's very exciting.
Is that kind of a trope for these kind of movies, do you know? I mean, you would
Well,
know better than
I
I.
mean, yeah, I mean, there's quite a few that are sort of music based music. You see a couple every season, every season. I mean, it makes sense because carols and music is such a part of Christmas, so it kind of makes sense that you'd have stories about musicians and things like that quite frequently. But they got a big hit. It's very exciting. And I was worried about this movie when I read the description because I felt like it didn't make sense that they would have to give up this big opportunity just to be at Christmas. Like you can celebrate Christmas anytime. It doesn't have to be that day, right? Like most of
Yeah,
the time when I celebrate Christmas with my parents, usually it's not on Christmas Day. Usually it's like a couple weeks before or a week after because they're visiting, one of my siblings that have kids, which is totally understandable and totally fine. All that matters is that you celebrate and you have your traditions. It doesn't necessarily have to be on that day, but I did think that they made it work as well as you could with the fact that there was sort of this religious service that was on that day that was really important for them to be at, and it was kind of a big sacrifice for them. So it was more than just celebrating Christmas. It was this service they wanted to be a part of. But uh so I guess I enjoyed this one more than I was expecting because on the surface that plot sounds kind of lame to me. But I don't know. What did you think overall of this one, of the
I think
Christmas
I
one?
like I think I like Country Hearts a little more, but
Yeah, me too.
I still thought this was good. I agree with you on the part of it being a little weird that they have to make that choice. I was just sitting there like, it's Christmas. If
Yeah.
you think it would be a little more understandable, be like, take the weekend, like take a couple days, celebrate, and then go back. Like,
Yeah.
unless they're like Taylor Swift or someone like The Weekend where they can't feasibly because the
Mhm.
tour is just like there's so much more money involved. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess my point is it was just a weird flex. Is a weird plot point for me.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like at least Bones, he was like, okay, that's too bad. I'll miss you. He wasn't that annoying, unreasonable father. And he was very supportive of Darlene, even though he missed her. He was like, you have to do this. You have to go, tour. And by the end, Darlene was like, you know what? I did it. I tried it. I'm glad I did. But now I want to be back. And he was like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
and
I did appreciate that
if
it was
anyone
real.
if anyone would understand like the decision, it would be Bones. I mean,
Yeah.
he lived
Yeah.
that life. So I don't know. It wasn't a total deal breaker, but like it just felt like it didn't need to be there.
But I was expecting a big guilt trip from him in the fact that he actually had like a reasonable response. Was like, oh, okay, good. This is good. And I think it's in this one where he's like, you're adults, you're my adult daughters, you get to make the choice, your
If it
choices.
were if it were a
Which
lesser
like,
movie, it would be like it would definitely be that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And so I really appreciated that. And so then we have, yeah, Thunder and Bluebell he's working with, and he gets Roddy to help him. What did you think of the Zillow spot? I died laughing. The Zillow
It was
spot.
it was I mean, got to pay the bills, I get it, but at the same time it was just like, man, this was like this you
It
can
was
definitely
so
tell
funny.
Zillow must have paid them a pretty penny.
Yeah. I think it was with Tori and Roddy, and Roddy's like, yeah, I could stay in the barn, but I really want to find a place here in town. And Tori's like, oh, you should totally check out Zillow. They have great filters and search engines, and you can find the best place on Zillow. And then she gets out the phone and she's like, scroll, scroll, scroll. See, isn't that great? Oh, that's great.
Felt like that scene in one of the Wayne's World movies where Wayne is like, "We would never sell ourselves out."
Yeah, and the
Like,
Pizza
that's
Hut. Yeah,
fan.
yeah. It was really funny. I was
Yeah, it wasn't a deal breaker for me.
No,
I
no,
guess it was
no.
just I was just watching it going, yeah, this is odd.
It
This.
was really funny. And not a deal breaker, but it was really, really funny. And and then we also have Justin getting all into a mess. Um, he gets into a fight at the bar, and Bones is really concerned about this. Bones sees the whiskey bottle at Justin's. Bones is in recovery, so that kind of triggers him. And you do get a scene with Bones with the whiskey bottle, and he's looking at it, and then he throws it in the trash. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, that was very nice, especially like with like pro wrestling is a very like kind of lawless world, and I promise this tangent won't be long, but like the names of people that have like lost their lives to like drugs and alcohol,
mm-hmm.
it's truly unfortunate.
Yeah,
I don't know if like Jericho like was approached about this and he said yes or no. I know he's kind of quit alcohol recently because he was like not fat per se, but he did put on some pounds. Like he released his own champagne called A Little Bit of the Bubbly a few years ago. So I
mm-hmm.
imagine he had a lot of that, but he slimmed down a lot. And the point I'm trying to get at is that I'm not sure if the screenwriters approached him and said, "Hey, given your history, can we do this?"
Mm-hmm.
But it was very nice.
Yeah.
It was a very nice like fist pump kind of moment.
Yeah. It was a good moment for the character. It really was. And so then we have that Barrett is seeing all of this with Justin because he's the bartender and getting real concerned about what's going on. He tries to talk to Tori about it and June, and then they have this whole thing of we are in this never-ending spiral, and he says, "I need somebody who's all in." So that's why I was really surprised when it kind of came down to it and she picked Barrett. I was not expecting that at the end.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice to say the least, and it was
Mm-hmm.
especially interesting with the all in moment. Kind of, it's a full circle from the first one.
Yeah. So the one interesting thing I do think about Justin is that they had, I think, a moment of good writing with him because most of his plot I didn't love. But when he says that I didn't expect it to be this hard. And so he's not just like a terrible husband. Like he genuinely, I think, wanted to be supportive of her music career and everything. But then it like surprised him how hard it was and how much he missed her. And I thought that was a pretty nuanced moment for an unnuanced character.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like could have been easily like kind of a hateable moment, and I wasn't really warmed up to him with the whole
Mm-hmm.
ending and the winery and the whole like your mother, like that's whole scene.
Yes.
But in that moment, I was like, dang it, they actually kind of turn him around.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
quite,
No.
not quite, but like not like he was heading for the plane was heading for
Yeah.
the mountain, but they pulled the nose up. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
that's my point.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. That I didn't expect this to be this so hard. Maybe we should reevaluate things. And here's where I do disagree. Where they said that my parents said never to go to bed angry. This is terrible advice. I'm not married. You're not married, but I think that you hear this advice, and I think it's terrible advice. I think that a lot of times you would need to cool down. And I think it's way better to go to bed technically angry than to say something in the heat of the moment that you are going to regret. And I just think it's way better. Like, yeah, you don't want to let things simmer and just hold a grudge. That's not good. But I think that one night to kind of think about things, reassess things, cool down, I think makes sense for a marriage. So I think it's bad advice. Never go to bed angry.
I think it just depends on the situation. Like sometimes you just need to like nip it in the bud right there. And then in
Mm-hmm.
other times, maybe you just need to get some distance, like give it
Mm-hmm.
some time,
Yeah.
and then just come back to it when, like you said, when clearer heads will prevail and all of that.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is when he says, "We are not Bones and Darlene." Ooh, that was a low moment. And then she says, "No one yells at me like that ever." It was good. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And so then this is when Bones says, "You're old enough to make your own life choices." And I thought that that was good. We also learn a little bit about Bones when he says, "As soon as I pick up the guitar, the bottles are not far behind." And that is something true to my limited understanding of recovery, is that most addicts have certain triggers that are really hard for them. And at least at the beginning, you need to just not have like I know when we were trying to help people quit smoking on my mission, like there were just certain convenient, like they couldn't go to the gas station where they typically bought their cigarettes. It was just too hard. Or certain smells, certain things. And so I think that is true, that it's very difficult. You have to be really strong in your sobriety to avoid to be able to withstand certain triggers.
Absolutely. I when I was losing weight and then like slimming down from where like my heaviest point was,
Mm-hmm.
different different animal from alcoholism, so I'm not
Right.
trying to compare myself in any way, but that school of thought more than applies, especially like if you're around, like if you're around or if you have to go back into certain circumstances, knowing that you have recovered and just have to confront those demons again, like it's beyond stressful. So like in that moment with Bones, I was just like, yeah, dude, like I may not like understand, but I understand, if that makes any sense
Yeah.
at all.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And so then we find out that Luke is going to work with Josie, and he's not going to go home for Christmas. So that's like knife in the heart.
Yep.
Not going home for Christmas.
Like that song says, all alone on Christmas, or well, not quite all alone, but
Yeah.
the sentiment is there.
Yeah. Yeah. Every song I write is about you, but every song you sing is about him. That was a good line. That was, oh, poor Luke. Poor Luke. Oh.
I rooted for him so hard.
Yeah. So then we get this scene between so Justin is like spiraling out of control. Bones finds him, and he says everybody messes up, but a real man owns his mistakes and tries to do better. And then he gives Justin a check, and he says, "All I ask is you do right by my daughter. Be the man she thinks you are. Be the man I know you can be." And he says, "This is not the answer, the whiskey." And so there you go. That's it.
One thing though, and it's a small thing, but like when he gave him that check, I was like, what's to stop Justin from going and buying more booze?
Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
you have to buy this speech that he gives, and this and this call to action is I mean, that's what because I was expecting the character to really be not redeemed in this episode, if this is assuming we're going to get more. So the fact that I was really surprised at the end with like him basically being like a great guy and we want to start a family. So I guess this was his wake up call. This is what he needed. But you're right. I mean, I think to go from, I mean, I'm sure that I would have given it to June and not to Justin. I would have given the check. But I guess Bones thought that Justin needed this, kind of wake up call of all I ask is you do right by my daughter, be the man she thinks you are, be the man I know you can be. So I guess that's what it took.
yeah, and I don't mean to be cynical, but I'm sitting here like, yeah, you just handed like a man who's clearly having problems with alcohol an excuse to buy more alcohol. Like you are smart, Mr. Bones.
Right. So when they hear about all of this going on with Justin and everything else, they are like, you know what, we need to be at services, we need to be at home. So they give up the spot Christmas Eve. In reality, they would probably have a contract. They wouldn't have a choice to give it up. But nevertheless, that's what you're supposed to believe. And then their manager, the guy, is super annoyed about that. And then he calls and he's like, we're gonna spin this cancellation in your favor with a pre-recorded segment. And we're basically gonna make it seem like that we're doing this pre-recorded because we believe in family and Christmas and everything like that. And this is also the scene where Bones gets kind of tempted by the whiskey bottle, but then throws it away and goes to church. Yeah. And the whole family makes it to church, including Darlene and the girls. And there's another daughter that sings also.
Yeah, I was going to say we haven't brought her up.
Yeah, she gets the shaft. Yeah, that daughter. Forget her. I don't even know her name.
It's like the other daughter that tours with mom.
Yeah.
Apropos of nothing.
Yes, and they do their favorite Christmas song, "Away in a Manger," which is also a free song. So I think that's probably more.
Gotta love that royalty free.
Yes. I mean, do you have a favorite Christmas carol?
Are we talking about like traditional ones or?
Yeah, or whatever, any of them.
Well, if we're talking about like Christmas songs you hear on the radio, I'm quite partial to "Please Come Home for Christmas" by the Eagles.
Okay.
And I also like "All Alone on Christmas," which like I don't know why, but I love the rhythm of that so much. I also am quite partial to "Blue Christmas" by Elvis. Like I love that song as well. As far as like traditional Christmas carols go, I'm a big Silent Night guy. Like any version of Silent Night and the first Noel. Like those are the top two for me.
Good choices. Good choices. My favorite is "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" for secular, and then for like more spiritual one. I love "What Child Is This?"
That's
my favorite. Yeah. So we get this scene at the church, and like I said, Darlene is there, the family's there, and then this is where Justin and June say they're starting a family, and Tori and Barrett kiss, and he says, "Are you asking me to have faith? At the end of the day, what else is there?" So I was really surprised that we ended up with team Barrett and Tori.
Definitely did not see that one coming.
No, I didn't. And then Bones and says, "Not one day you didn't have it," with Darlene. And she says, "You know what? I think I did it. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did the tour. I glad I tried it, and I'm ready to be back home." And he's like, "Yeah, all right." This is the dream Christmas.
Wait till next movie and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I do love Michelle Nolden, who plays Darlene. I think she has a really warmth about her as an actress. She's not in that many scenes. You have a feeling that most of her scenes were shot elsewhere. She's not in that many scenes, but I think that she's just probably because she was doing Heartland, I would bet. But she has a natural warmth as an actress, I think, that makes her very appealing. I think she was good as the mom.
She makes the most of her minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, that is a good way to describe it. So there we go. So I would give both of these movies, I would give them like 3.5, I would say, crowns out of 5. I think especially for Heartland fans, I think you'll have a good enough time. There's cheesy moments. Some of the acting isn't the best. There's the Zillow moment, things like that. But I think for its target demo, I think you'll have a fun enough time. I enjoyed it.
For Country Hearts, I'd go 3.5. For Country Heart Christmas, I'd go 3.
Okay. Yeah. That's fair. So let us know if you got to watch both of these, what you would give them, what you thought of them. If you think they should make some more, we'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments or on Twitter. And Ryan, where can people find you?
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd at RyanCam20. Then, of course, the YouTube channel at RyanCam20, like I talked about at the top of the show. Like I said, I got a lot of Christmas stuff coming. Like I said, including The Bishop's Wife, which I have to continue watching once I leave here. And then I watched this little movie called I'll Be Seeing You. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, Rachel, but it's actually, I'd call it underrated. It's actually pretty good.
Hmm.
It's got Shirley Temple in it, but not as a little girl, but as like kind of a teenager. And it also has Ginger Rogers in it. And it's
cool. I haven't heard of that.
And it's about a soldier who is on leave from World War II and has PTSD. And Ginger Rogers plays a woman who is serving time in prison, but she is given a furlough to visit her family for Christmas. And the two kind of fall in love. And it's honestly like really solid.
Cool. That sounds good. Sounds good. Well, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure that you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. Really, really appreciate that. 5 stars. And if you are watching YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group and merch store, so check out that. And thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.